Let's talk about my favorite subject, lighting. To me, light is more important than the story. So, for example, if there's like this pyramid of what makes an image work, at the bottom foundation will be the shapes, obviously, right? Because we need shapes in an image to make it work, to show something, right? And then above the shapes, I'll place lighting. And then on top of the lighting, I will place the story and the details will go on top. So meaning the pyramid will still work with its strong foundation of the shapes and lighting alone. And I know there's like a lot of artists that will say that the story is more important part of an image, but if you're trying to come up with an image and you're trying to show like something super cool, like I don't know, two ninjas like shooting or fighting a dinosaur, but your lighting is off, it's not like supporting your composition, it's not supporting creating strong reads, it's not introducing like any mood, then it can hurt the image. While on the other hand, if you will just create an image of a facade, and it shows just a facade and there's like sun creeping in, and we see that the sun is super strong and it's like washing away the colors, and the shadow side is like desaturated or going into colors, and then we get to see how the texture is popping out from the shadows. Like to me, that those are like the best type of images. So just to show you an example, there is this watercolor artist called Dan Michel. And when I was drawing years ago, I love doing studies of those images, or of like those images, or this kind of image, or this one, for example. Because to me, this felt like the most exciting thing ever. Just how the light is hitting this facade and the textures, they're being washed away, and then we get to see this shadowy silhouette, and then in the shadow, the texture is like starts to pop out, and they're like different types of colors. So I've done a lot of studies of those images, and I was like starting with something extremely fleshed out. So for example, this one, right? That's the study of this image. But then there was like this one by another artist, and was, for example, like this one, right? I really love how we get to recognize the form of this shape, because there's like there's the light side and there's the darker side. There's the light side, and then pushing in some cold colors to create like even bigger contrast, or to try and make it more pleasing. So yeah, when I'm creating a scene, usually, I mean, I know I benefited a lot by doing those the studies, and after some time I wasn't like going into that much detail. I was just like trying to, oh, that's an old one. I was going into Photoshop and just like sketching out, try to guess the color of the forms, of the difference between the dark side and the light side. Because the thing with tone is, or with how lighting works, is I will often want to keep my light warm. So then I will want for my shadows to keep them cold in color, or cold meaning they're either blue or they're either like the saturated grays. And when your sun is warm and your shadows will be just desaturated, they will still slightly like optically tint towards this colder, slightly bluish color. Now, just to show you as an example why I've mentioned earlier that it's important for our eye to be able to recognize the shape it's looking at, because then our brain, it doesn't have to figure out the forms, or our brain is not confused by what our eyes are looking at. So for example, those are like not related assets to this tutorial. I just want to use them as an example. There's a lot of forms going on in this model and on this model, but the whole form, it feels flat, right? It's really hard to tell what we are looking at, as in how the faces are turning, right? It's more visible in here, but it's just because of the texture. It's like on Z axis, but in here it's harder to say what's the top, what's the side. Now, if we move our side like so, it pops up so many different forms. So to me, this is more interesting than this. I know that to my eyes, this is more interesting, and I know to the eyes, to the viewer who's like enjoying our images, right? He might feel the same way, and it's something that we might like do unknowingly. I don't know. So yeah, one of the scenarios I will often start with or go with, or like the basic scene setup will be a strong sunlight and a blue sky. And I know like I will maybe want to go with different mood, but I will always start with this setup, and I will show you how to set up sun with black body nodes, how to set up your sun in a way where it will give like the valid and correct information. So, oh, and if it's like a strong sunlight, so maybe let's delete this one. So my basic setup will be strong sunlight and blue shadows, and then I might end up like, for the sake of these images, I think for each of the frame I will be going with different mood and show you how to achieve it. But this is like the easiest one, and I will just like stick with this one if you are a beginner, for example. But what I will do is I will use Gaffer, and maybe I will go with Verswelt Pass HDRI. So what I'm looking for in an HDRI is the color of the sky, because the color of the sky will dictate the colors of my shadows. So yeah, my shadows are blue. And now when I look at the sky, often HDRIs, they come up with sun information, and I don't want to use the sky from HDRI because I'm limited in how I can control the sun, right? So in advanced section in Gaffer, there is like this function to clamp brightness. I'll just type in 1. So what it's doing is disabling the sun from the HDRI. And now what I will do, I will add my own sun. I will go over here and use nodes. I'm not changing the values in here. And I don't want to color pick my sun by hand, because most often than not, I got it wrong. So then what would happen is, for example, I would go with this sunlight, and then some objects, I would have like dozens or hundreds of models on my scene. And what I would end up doing is like trying to tweak all of the models with hue saturation, and then like maybe desaturate it, maybe make it darker in value. So I was like basically creating a problem, not solving it, because the assets, they wouldn't look unified. Or what I would do is, instead of having, when it comes to outdoor scenes, sunny days, I want to keep my life unified. I want, like, if it's a daylight, I want only one light source. If we are talking about interior shots, cinema shots, where there's like a light on a table, and there's another light coming from outside of the camera, meaning what I want to say is, it's okay to stage lights on your scene, but those lights, they need to feel justified. So there could be light on a table, and then there's like stronger area light coming from the side, and it's not in the camera, but it just creates a stronger read, right? So, but when it comes to sunlight, I'll want to only have sun, because what I would use to do a lot is, and this is an extremely heavy asset, if I would start building my scene, I would go with a sun, and then I would like to type in some weird value, keep it like so, and then some of the areas would maybe feel too dark, so then I would start adding spotlight, and I try to lead this area. Oh, okay, and then this side was too dark. All right, so let's add another spotlight, and then let's another spotlight. So it creates so many different problems, because now what I want to do is I want to unify the lighting by using the spotlight. And again, we are talking about direct, strong sunlight scenarios. So what I will do instead is add a sun. And I think I can move my tablet. So I will add a sun and click use nodes. And then I'm leaving those values alone. And I'm typing in search black body node. So what black body node allows me to do, or allows us to do, is to set up sun temperature by Kelvin degrees. So this one is fuzzy. But I think it's still visible. So sometimes I will, the lighting scenario I will start with is I will try to go somewhere in the afternoon, right? So afternoon is like, it will be like 4500 Kelvin degrees. So I will just look at this picture as a reference. My sun will be slightly warmer, all right? The shadows will be strong. So I'll just like type in this value in here, right? And then I will increase my emission strength. Now for the emission strength, usually if I want like super strong, if I want a strong sun, I will go with 12. If I want to add like a super tropical hot, I will go with 14. Now if I will want to add some volumetrics and the sun will be shining through the volumetrics, I might increase the value even like slightly more. And it's just because when it comes to volumetrics in Blender, they're washing away the sun information, but I will talk about volumetrics and do's and don'ts, or what I'm trying to do or avoid when using them in a second. So this is my go-to scenario I will start with. I have it set up as my starter file. So startup files, whenever I open a new project, start working on it, there's this basic lighting setups that I know is accurate. So sometimes, I mean, even more often than that, I will just work in solid mode and just focus on the shapes and place the shapes, and then I will maybe go into viewport shading and change color to lighting, because I will be able to differentiate between the shapes a bit better. So I can just like focus on building compositions, right? With the shapes, instead of like having to keep worrying about, all right, is my light information is correct? Fuck yeah, it's correct. That's like one less thing to worry about. And then after, if I want to change it, yeah, I will just like change it later. Now, I mean, sometimes I also start with like different lighting scenarios, like from the scratch. It's just, what I'm saying is I just want to have one less problem to worry about. Because this is my foundation, this is our like foundation of the scene, and we want to get it right, and we can always change it later, right? So again, one scenario will be strong sunlight, sharp shadows. Now, the other scenario might be a soft sky, where the shadows are diffuse. So sometimes what I'm seeing is for example, if someone wants to go with this overcasty type of weather, he will go with like super low value. But the thing with overcast type of weather is the sky should be, because of the clouds, the sun information is transmitted, scattered through the clouds, which means our shadows will be desaturated, right? That's the first thing. And the other thing will be our shadows will be soft. So what I want to do is increase the sun angle, or like even bigger, right? Because sometimes what I'm seeing is like a super strong sunlight with soft shadows, which kinda looks confusing, or what I will see is super sharp shadows and super low emission. So what I'm saying is I will try to pick and choose. It's either strong sunlight, sharp shadows, or it's like overcast day with soft shadows, right? What else I want to talk about? So about volumetrics. Now we'll talk about volumetrics in depth, and then I'll be showing like approach for night shots and sunsetty shots as well. So the thing with volumetrics is I try to be super gentle with them. Meaning, to me, like too heavy volumetrics, they will wash out the texture, they will wash out the sun information, it will wash out the reads. So let's create this. Like, you see how it's already affecting, for example, the color of my shadows, and I really don't want to for it to affect the shadows, right? I mean, sometimes I want, and it sometimes helps and unifies the image. But what I'm getting at is if I increase the density, like you see how my sun information is getting like washed away, right? So, and sometimes, yeah, if it's like super misty, then of course that's what will be happening in nature. But it's just that I'm really trying to not overuse volumetrics, because again, they're washing away the forms. And if it can be a moody art, like I've done, prepared one of the images will have like super overcasty and moody weather, but still I hope the reads will be clear. So a lot of the times, the way I, for example, the way I was like using volumetrics, I was making them too heavy and I was placing them right in front of the camera. So they were like washing away right from the foreground to the midground to the background, and it was like covering a bunch of choices that I've made. So for example, I would imagine there were like a bunch of buildings in the distance, and I just spent like a lot of time modeling them, right? And they should have like a lot of details visible. But then again, what would happen, everything like got lost. Now the other thing with volumetrics, while I'm trying to be super careful with them, is if there's like a bunch of buildings. So another thing, because I have my volumetrics in here, and because this cube is right in front of the camera, it's harder to grab this asset behind. So what I will do, I will go over here, go into viewport display, and change to wire. So now I can only select this box by wire, but I can select through it. So the other thing with strong volumetrics is it basically kills our sky. So usually, even if it's like super foggy, like the rule of thumb is that your sky should always be a bit brighter than, for example, the elements on your scene. We still want to be able to see the shapes clearly. So what I will do sometimes is I will just like add a sky. Let's from this one. I'll add a sky, I would plug it in. When this happens, like our object is disappearing from the camera, it means you need to increase your camera distance. Right? And then I will plug in this background into emission shader, and then I will increase the emission strength. And then by RGB curves, I don't know how it works, but just pulling it down controls what emits the emission, what emits light. So in this case, in case of this like setting, the whole sky is emitting colors or light, and now it's only the clouds. So when if I'm using heavy volumetrics, then I will add like a card that will still help me. Damn it. That will still allow me to pop up the silhouettes of the buildings, just like so, right? But then again, I would never, like, I'm just showing you an example when working volumetrics, but I would never place volumetrics this close to the camera. If this is like our foreground, midground, and this is like a background, then maybe I will place it in here, and then I will make it like super low in value. So I will show you more examples why I'll be working on the scenes, but that's basically it when it comes to like sunny, overcasty, or like super hazy and misty. Now, so about creating night shots, they are a bit more tricky to pull off than your regular day shot, where you only have like one strong light source, and that's enough. While for night shots, I'm finding myself that more often than not, I will want to stage the light just a bit, because, well, it's dark and I want to push my reads. So for example, imagine this shot without this overhead light, and imagine this overhead light is not affecting the surface, and it's not like reflecting or bouncing the light back. So it would be extremely hard to create the reads, right? Or how this surface working here. Or by the way, Shot Deck is an amazing site. Like when I can't figure out a mood, I will like scroll through it until I find something that feels great. Yeah, that's from New Batman, or the most recent Batman. And more often than not, you will see like the night shots are being post-processed, or like the colors are being tweaked towards the mood is being tweaked towards like those colder colors like blues or teals or like greens, right? Because what we always want to avoid is maybe having like pure black in your images. It feels like all of the images always should be graded into some like different color, or just into like the slight tint of a color, instead of like being just black, right? And I love how we are. It feels super moody, right? But there's like a bunch of lights that help push the silhouette of the shape, and in here as well. So this overhead light is cool too. So I want to show you this example. So I was working on those images like last year, and the first one, it was relatively quick to do. This one too, but I struggled a bit with those, and I struggled a bit with those because at first I didn't have those lights from this building, those warm lights, and I didn't have any lights in there. So the image, it felt like monotone or monochromatic. I'm confused by those like too, but well, it felt like it was just everything was going into blues. And because I didn't have those lights, I didn't have those reflections, and I didn't. If I didn't have those lights, I didn't have those reflections. And then I remember I didn't have like the light source, stage light source from behind the mech, so I didn't have those reflections as well. So the characters were blending in, and I just couldn't figure out what the fuck was wrong. So what helped is introducing those warm lights and tweaking the texture so it would make this area brighter, and tweak them to make this area brighter to push the characters, right? And about the sky, so yeah, the sky is still I had it was too dark at the beginning, so I had to make it lighter in order to create some more interesting silhouettes, right? The same goes in here and in there. Like the light, the warm lights in there are placed on purpose as well as in there. In here is the same. I mean, I guess this shot could work like if it were like only graded like this greenish blue feeling. And about framing, so I kind of messed this one up. I mean, I'm super proud of it, but now I would just place this character like over here, and I would make him like this high, and maybe this character could be like slightly even bigger in the frame, because it feels a bit, to me now that I look at it, it feels a bit disconnected. But then I really like the way the light was poking through, and then I just added a bunch of like PNGs and make them lighter in value. And the other thing is, while I'm talking about it, is when we want to do rain in your image, rain city, no, not rain city drive. A lot of the times, when I was like in the past years, I was like doing some night shots with some snow falling or some raindrops falling. What I would do, I would just like import this huge PNG of like rain everywhere, and I would just like place it overlay on top of my image, and it just created like a lot of noise. When in reality, what happens is you see how rain in here is visible and how it's not or barely visible to the side. So rain will be only visible, or snowflakes, or like any like particles like this, I mean mainly rain, it will pop up because it's affected by the light source. And what I would do, I would just like place rain overlay, and it would be visible everywhere, right? And this already gives us a sense that it's a rainy day, and then we get to see a lot of like reflections on the floor. So maybe another example: snow city street. Oh, like in here. Oh, that's actually a bit too much. Snow night. Yep, the particles are like more visible in here, and then some of them should feel closer to the camera while others should feel like further away from it. So in case of those images, I really tried to also add a bunch of lights like this spotlight in there, because I really wanted to highlight the particles, and those are just ecospheres. And I've tweaked the camera in Blender in a way where it were blurring out stuff in the foreground, and there are like two different settings that you can use to be able to achieve this effect. So the rain is more visible in there, and it's like less visible in some other areas, right? Slightly visible in here. And then I've added a PNG that appears closer to the camera, and just made it a bit lighter, right? The same goes in here. And in here I really I shouldn't have like added those in here, but I still went with it because I had like some splashy particles on the ground. But still. And yeah, about this one. So the rain is like still noticeable, right? But it's like it is the strongest in here and in here, because there is a stage light over there behind the characters, and it creates this effect, and I really like this effect. And then again, the same goes in here. And then the particles on the ground, this is just like a one image, one PNG with some splash and some droplet or drop on top of it, and it's like scattered like hundreds of times. And yeah, you can still see the card, right? The cards. But yeah, that's totally fine.